Okay, so hey everyone, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something that I think pretty much everyone listening has probably encountered at some point in their lives, and that's dealing with relationships that just leave you feeling kind of off.
Yeah, those relationships that make you question yourself and make you feel drained or just not quite right.
Right, and it's so important to understand what's actually going on in those situations, right?
Right.
So we can start to protect ourselves and actually do something about it.
Absolutely. And that's what we're diving deep into today.
Exactly. We're calling this our deep dive into toxic relationships because we want to give you like a real practical guide to not only spotting those red flags, but also figuring out how to navigate them.
To do that, we've pulled some really interesting insights from this YouTube channel called Speak English with Class.
They have a podcast called English Leap Podcast, and they recently did an episode all about overcoming toxic relationships.
And it was hosted by these three people named Evan and Aaron and Lucy.
Yeah, and they had some amazing points. We're going to be pulling out the most important stuff for you so you can walk away with like a clear understanding of the dynamics at play.
And hopefully some actual strategies for dealing with these kinds of situations, because let's face it, they're pretty common.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And, they started off in the original podcast with this analogy that really stuck with me. It was the idea of a hidden garden and a choking vine.
Oh, I remember that one.
Yeah, like you plant this little seed, right? You're so
And
excited for
what
it to grow into
is,
something beautiful.
yeah.
You give it all the care and attention it needs. But then this sneaky vine starts wrapping itself around it.
And slowly but surely it starts cutting off the sunlight and taking all the nutrients for itself, right?
Exactly. And that's kind of how toxic relationships can be.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't always start out with like huge red flags or drama.
No, they often creep in slowly with these subtle little things like
The
backhanded compliment here, a dismissive comment there,
or that feeling of just being constantly on edge around that person.
right? Like you can't quite put your finger on it, but something just feels off.
Yeah. And over time, those little things can really start to add up, and you're left feeling drained and just not yourself.
Absolutely, like that seedling being choked out by the vine.
Which brings us to this saying they brought up in the podcast that I think is so important. It's better to be alone than in bad company.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Now, I know at first glance, it sounds kind of obvious, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, of course we should avoid people who are just outright nasty to us.
But it goes deeper than that, doesn't it? It's about recognizing the value of your own peace and well-being.
Exactly. It's about understanding that you don't have to subject yourself to constant negativity or drama.
And that choosing to step away from those kinds of connections isn't selfish. It's actually an act of self-respect.
Yeah, it's about creating space for yourself to heal and grow and really discover who you are outside of those relationships.
And I think one of the biggest misconceptions about toxic relationships is that they're always super obvious and dramatic.
Right? Like those big blowouts and betrayals that you see in movies.
Exactly. But what the host pointed out is that a lot of times it's much more subtle than that.
Yeah, sometimes it's those little digs and criticisms that chip away at your self-esteem over time.
Or that constant low-level anxiety you feel around a certain person without really knowing why.
And it's the cumulative effect of those small things that can be so damaging.
Have you ever felt like you're constantly walking on eggshells around someone?
Oh yeah, totally.
That's a big sign that something might not be right.
And another misconception they talked about is this idea that leaving a toxic relationship should be easy.
Yeah, we all wish there was just like a switch we could flip, right? But it's rarely that simple.
It's so much more complex because there are often a lot of emotions involved.
You might genuinely care about the person. You probably have a shared history with them.
Maybe even some good memories,
And it's easy to get caught up in this hope that things will eventually get better.
even when deep down, they probably won't.
Recognizing those feelings of attachment and hope, even in a situation that's hurting you, is a big step towards making healthier choices.
It's about acknowledging that it's okay to struggle with those emotions.
Yeah, and that it takes a lot of courage to even start thinking about leaving.
So dealing with these relationships isn't just about that big dramatic exit. It's a process.
A process that starts with paying attention to your own feelings and acknowledging when something feels wrong.
Exactly. They mentioned some key red flags to look out for, like a consistent lack of safety.
And that's not just physical safety, right? It's emotional safety, too.
Feeling safe to express yourself without fear of judgment or criticism.
And feeling respected and valued for who you are.
If those things are consistently missing in a relationship, it's a sign that something needs to change.
And that change might involve setting boundaries. It might involve seeking support from friends, family, or even a therapist.
And ultimately, it might mean making the really difficult decision to end the relationship altogether.
The key takeaway here is to trust your gut instinct.
If something feels off, Don't ignore it.
Honor your own emotional experience and remember that you deserve to be treated with respect.
Something else they talked about that I found really interesting was how our understanding of relationships has evolved over time.
Yeah, like in the past, there was this huge pressure to stay together no matter what.
Like it was almost seen as a failure if you got divorced or broke up with someone.
But thankfully, there's been a big shift in that thinking.
Now there's a growing understanding that love shouldn't be painful.
And that respect is a fundamental right in any relationship.
So if you're in a situation that's causing you more harm than good, it's not your fault.
You're not obligated to stay just because of societal pressure or outdated expectations.
You deserve to be happy and healthy. And that might mean choosing to walk away from a relationship that's no longer serving you.
And that can be such a hard thing to admit to yourself.
Yeah, I think a lot of people struggle with feeling like it's their fault if a relationship doesn't work out.
Like they've somehow failed.
But recognizing that a relationship is toxic isn't about dwelling on what went wrong.
It's about acknowledging your own worth and understanding that you deserve better.
It's about choosing to prioritize your own well-being and making space for those positive qualities within yourself to shine through.
They use this beautiful analogy in the podcast that said that leaving a toxic situation can feel like stepping into sunlight after a long shadow.
Oh, I love that.
It's such a hopeful image, right?
Yeah, it captures that feeling of relief and renewal that can come from finally freeing yourself from that negativity.
And it reminds us that even though the process of leaving can be tough, the long-term benefits are so worth it.
You know, another societal pressure they talked about was this expectation to always be loyal no matter what.
Like good people stick it out through thick and thin.
But what they pointed out is that real loyalty shouldn't be one-sided.
It's not about constantly giving while the other person just takes and takes.
True loyalty involves mutual respect and reciprocity.
And if that's not present in a relationship, then it's not actually loyalty, it's an imbalance.
And breaking free from those kinds of harmful expectations can be really empowering.
It shows yourself and the people around you that you value your own well-being.
And that you're not afraid to stand up for what you deserve.
And they gave this great example of someone who did just that.
Oh yeah, Maya Angelou.
Exactly. She made a conscious decision to remove herself from relationships where she was constantly being put down.
And she went on to live this amazing life full of purpose and creativity.
It just shows that even people we admire have faced these same challenges.
And that choosing to walk away can actually open up so many new possibilities.
It's important to remember, too, that toxic relationships can take many different forms.
It's not just romantic partners, right?
Absolutely. It can be friends, family members, even coworkers.
Anyone who consistently makes you feel disrespected or devalued.
And the key is to remember that no matter what form it takes, you deserve to feel safe and seen in your relationships.
And you have the right to speak up, set boundaries, and even walk away if necessary.
To protect your own heart and mind.
So going back to that saying, it's better to be alone than in bad company.
It's not just about avoiding negativity, it's about valuing your own inner peace and self-worth.
It's about choosing to surround yourself with people who lift you up and support you.
And recognizing that it's okay to be alone sometimes.
In fact, it can be really beneficial.
It gives you time to reconnect with yourself and figure out what truly matters to you.
So as you're listening to this, I want you to take a moment to reflect on your own experiences.
Think about the relationships in your life and how they make you feel.
Do you feel respected? Do you feel safe? Do you feel seen?
If not, what can you do to change that?
Maybe it's having an honest conversation with the person.
Maybe it's setting some firm boundaries.
Or maybe it's time to walk away.
Whatever you decide to do, remember that you're not alone.
And that there are people who care about you and want to support you.
And remember that handling a toxic relationship isn't about placing blame.
It's about recognizing that everyone deserves to be in healthy and fulfilling relationships.
And that sometimes choosing to walk away is the kindest thing you can do for yourself.
It's about prioritizing your own well-being and creating space for growth and healing.
So let's go back to that garden analogy one last time.
Remember that choking vine.
By removing that vine, you're creating space for your own inner garden to flourish.
You're allowing yourself to grow and bloom and reach your full potential.
Trust yourself. You have the right to find peace and happiness.
And you deserve to be surrounded by people who support and nurture your growth.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Even if you're feeling lost or uncertain right now, remember that you're not alone.
There are so many people who have been through similar experiences.
And they've come out stronger and wiser on the other side.
Take a deep breath, acknowledge your own strength, and remember that every step you take towards creating a healthier and happier life is a step worth celebrating.
The original podcast also had this really helpful section on important vocabulary and expressions.
Yeah, they highlighted words like harmful boundaries, toxic influence, respect self-worth, and that really crucial phrase, free yourself.
Understanding these terms can be so helpful in recognizing and addressing these situations in your own life.
So as you go forward, keep reflecting on your relationships and remember to always prioritize your own well-being.
You got this.
Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.